investment in society, for genuine change, for radical change. When you have movements like the movement around Sarah Everard, gives you an illustration of what can happen when people are mobilised to fight. The trade union movement should be taking the lead in these struggles and should be explaining that it's not simply a question of arbitrating and of trying to find agreement with the bosses. The struggle to change workers' lives, the struggle for equality, is all about the struggle ultimately to get rid of capitalism and replace it with a socialist society. You can't have capitalism without racism. So we've got to get rid of racism, we've got to smash capitalism. That was the
We're delighted to introduce our next speaker, Laura Lee Daly from the Women's Banner Group. The Women's Banner Group was born out of the struggle of the miners' strike and to recognise the achievements of women in the North East. They continue to do incredible work to amplify and advocate for women. So please welcome Laura Lee Daly.
Solidarity, comrades, I hope you're all well. First of all, let me start by saying thank you so much for having us here today. We love standing side by side with all of these fantastic campaigns, and we hold you all in really close friendship and solidarity. Thank you. As Rachel said, yes, I'm from the Women's Banner Group. We initially started out to recognise the achievements of women during the miners' strike. Since then, however, there has been one campaign after another, where women are still left behind. We get paid less. You know, we get treated in a less ideal way than men do. We've got so much to do, and we're here tonight to represent for women. Today even, sorry. I haven't written anything down today because really I just want to speak from the heart and tell you that women are still massively underrepresented. There's a problem with intersectionality, and Muslim women are treated some of the worst in this society. We need to do better. We need to fix this. But to do this, we need to stand in solidarity with our sisters across the country and across the world. This is not just a job for women. Our brothers need to be standing with us in solidarity too. Women, every man you know can be an ally. You need to take this challenge today. That is to teach the men about your experiences. Tell them that it's not okay for you to just go out in the middle of the night and go for a run. You don't feel safe doing that. It's not okay to walk to the shop when it's dark. It's not okay to do those things. You've got to be careful in a car park. You've got to be careful wherever you go. Men don't have that fear in the same way that women do. Talk to them, tell them, educate them. Make every man you know an ally. Because without men, nothing will change. Sadly, that is the way of it. Women, it is down to you to speak your voices, speak your truth, tell everybody how you feel. This woman has it right here without protests. We would not have the right to vote. Hold your right to protest close to your heart. It is the way we win. It is the way we get solidarity. It is the way we get equality, respect and tolerance. We must demand this for everyone across society, for all of our comrades here today, for the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign, for the Black Lives Matter campaign. We're all in this together. We all need to work shoulder to shoulder to fix this broken world that we now live in. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Solidarity, comrades.
Thank you so much to Laura for that powerful speech. And I'm incredibly excited to introduce our next speaker. Tabitha is an author, an artist and a writer. Please welcome Tabitha.
One of the things I've been doing a lot recently, because I write, is procrastinating on social media. And if you procrastinate long enough on social media, you realise what an absolute cesspit that can be. So I did just a short poem today that I think captures some of the most typical kind of responses and people that you find there. I see them, these proud mums and dads of shiny, smiling kids, all bright and ready for the first day of big school, who laugh at the reports of another shipwreck in the Med, and happily type, good, one less load of vermin over here, as the photos of drowned babies are shared around the world. These patriots, these upholders of British values and protectors of their race and their womenfolk, who cannot quite decide if I'm too ugly to be touched or deserve to be raped until I bleed, and then I'll be sorry. These men who read my words, then carefully consider and craft their response. You're fat. I bet you eat cake, lol. And for the record, yes, I do, because cake is great. These historians who inform me that Antifa are the real Nazis and Hitler was a socialist, whilst the ghosts of the trades unionists, the communists and the leftists, first to be consumed by Dachau's gaping maw, they quietly weep, and Johnny Longstaff turns restless in his gentle grave. These scholars who state that there is no racism in our country, you stupid bitch, as they let loose their gorilla emojis and wittily misspelt slurs to creep past the censor, and smirk as they write about ovens that could not have cooked so many loaves of bread, because it's science, innit, love? These family men who assure me they don't have a racist bone in their body, sweetheart, because they've got a Pakistani mate and their second cousin married a man from one of them Arab countries. And they once worked with this fella who used to love the black and white minstrels, and he was black himself. So what do you think about that, you snowflake? And circling around their profile picture, the only time I'll kneel is when I'm holding a big fish, are the banners proclaiming EDL, NFSE, White Lives Matter. And I see them. We glibly call you monsters at our peril, for monsters are just mere creatures, freaks of nature, who emerge fully formed from their lairs and must be vanquished by heroes. They are not us. Oh, but you are. You're human, born and raised and nurtured on our own soil. You look like us, you walk and talk like us, and every brown shirt was somebody's baby once. Oh, I see you. We see you, and we kneel together, and we stand together, brothers, sisters, siblings, or else we fall apart. My stomping born feet are planted in our shared earth, and continue the cry of no passaran, louder than your fear, louder than your hate, and louder than the cowardly silence of complicity.
Thank you so much, Samuel, that was brilliant. Neil have been proud to take to the streets of Newcastle week after week to oppose and resist and defeat this racist and repressive police and crime bill. And we're absolutely honoured to be joined by one of our speakers next, who is Maxine, who is an activist from Kill the Bill Newcastle.
Hello everyone. So, for some context for those who don't know, over the past couple of months, tens of thousands have been mobilising up and down the country in opposition to the new Police and Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill. This bill is an inherently racist piece of legislation and is a direct attack on our rights to protest. It seeks to criminalise protest by giving police more powers to impose conditions on protest, to use any means necessary on the grounds of deliberately vague and exploitable definitions of annoyance and nuisance, with these charges leading up to 10 years in prison. The bill attacks Gypsy and Roma traveller rights by essentially criminalising their existence and way of life, criminalising unauthorised encampments and trespass, forcing them to risk up to 3 months jail time and fines of up to £2,500. The bill also gives police more stop and search powers, which we know is a deeply racist practice that disproportionately affects black people, black and brown communities, with black people being almost 9 times more likely to be stop and search than their white counterparts. The new powers will give police stop and search powers based on previous convictions without any reason for suspicion, which just gives power to the police to abuse and racially profile people. This bill has been snuck through in Parliament at a time when we, as ordinary people, are still dealing with the repercussions and struggle against an incompetent government that has failed to adequately deal with the global health pandemic. And what's even more messed up is that as soon as the murder of Sarah Everard was publicised, the Tory government decided that it would be a good opportunity for them to capitalise off of the suffering and violence against women, to weaponise the safety of white women and use it as a way of defending this authoritarian bill. But where is the logic when firstly Sarah is one of many women who suffered at the hands of police, and this piece of legislation literally values stone figures of glorified rich old white men protecting stone memorials with up to 10 years in prison over cases of rape that risk significantly less jail time. This bill is birthed out of the government fear of our solidarity when we stand together and take action. A fear of the potentials of the Black Lives Matter movement and direct action groups like Extinction Rebellion and Sisters Uncut. Government fear that we have the ability to threaten the status quo, which we do. We've seen this happen in Newcastle over the last couple months. People gathering together at Monument and taking to the streets, peacefully marching and chanting in hopes that our voices are heard by those at the top and those all around us. We already saw a sneak peek of how eager and ready Northumbria police were to get a reaction out of us. Some of you may know that over the past month at the Newcastle Kill the Bill demos, we have seen a clear change in attitude coming from Northumbria police. Minors have been arrested and held in cells for over 10 hours for writing statements in chalk on this very monument. Protesters were picked off by police after sitting down to rest and treated with severe aggression. At least 3 people were rugby tackled and pinned to the ground, sustaining injuries, cuts and bruises. People have been threatened with arrest and in some cases arrested for documenting arrests and supporting arrestees. Thank you. There is now a total of 17 arrests/charges made against local peaceful protesters, and all the defendants have issues with how the police have dealt with this and cases of misconduct, with a long list of complaints to be made against their racist remarks, their aggression and their lack of empathy for dealing with those with mental health issues. The police do not need any more powers. If anything, they need a power check. There is too deep-rooted of a culture within the police to abuse their powers they are given because they are continually allowed to do so and act in ways that they do not have to worry about being held accountable for. And this fight against police violence and oppression is nothing new, and it is not a local issue. This fight transcends borders, whether it's in the US, in Hong Kong, the fight against the military coup in Myanmar, the fight against the ESMAD forces in Colombia who are trained by UK police, or the fight against the Israeli military forces who are funded by the UK. Being here in the UK and opposing the policing bill is so crucial to allow for us to continue to express our acts of solidarity with the struggle that goes on around the world. We must continue to demand accountability from the UK government on its complicity, whether that's due to its ties with oppressive regimes or instead its silence and its lack of action. So please, let us channel our efforts and energy against the armed forces that protect the status quo and protect the global capitalist class. They do not serve to protect us as ordinary people, and they will not keep us safe. The money and the power the police are given to abuse do not belong with them, but they should belong to us, to the community, and to the people. So yeah, fuck Priti Patel and let's kill the bill together.
So much. Our next speaker is Jamie.
Thank you, everybody. Well, we stand here we stand here in peace, not war, love, hurt, unity, not loneliness, and respect, not disrespect. For we stand here one for one and all for all. We stand here against the Israelis 73 years of control they've had on Palestine. We stand here for Black Lives Matter, free Palestine, kill the bill, free Colombia, free Romani communities, justice for women, Dylan, one love, rest in peace. For we stand here united in support for all human rights matters that are being torn apart and abolished by this Tory system that's so dangerous and out of control. As I sit here upon the second floor of this high-rise block of flats, for I sit here motionless like this pigeon feather that's just been waiting to be dropped, and I see nothing and hear nothing and feel nothing other than the sight and sound of this pen that just seems to scratch from side to side upon this sheet of plain paper. But as I sit here upon the second floor of this high-rise block of flats, I came to ask upon myself for why, what and when did it all turn to this? Well, is it because that pigeon feather was dropped? Or is it that one more hurdle in life that's always and always waiting for us just to hop? Or is it because all those life true beings are all just meant to be? For purple skies and bloodshot eyes, and it came to this as it's no surprise. For when we're all feeling so burnt and tension mounts, cannot change what we've done and where we're coming from, but we can all change who we're wanting to be. When we're all going to start living right from wrong and respecting every single one of our fellow man. But then again, it's all purple skies and bloodshot eyes, and it came to this as it's no surprise. For why, when a city of angels are flying around our eyes, are we all standing accused of wearing our hearts upon our sleeves? Well, if that's what's wrong, I'm sorry, this government and the other half of the system are never meant to truly see what was always just meant to be right. For when I close my eyes and dream, I dream of this world that's full of peace, a world with no war. And I dream of this world that's full of love and a world with no hurt. For I dream of this world that's full of unity and a world with no loneliness. And I dream of this world that's full of respect and a world with no disrespect. So that when all of us true people can all open our eyes and see, we could always see this immaculate world, this world that will always exist of the existence of Plur, for it's all peace, love, unity and respect. One love, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. And one campaign that is absolutely central and everybody should ensure that they support is a campaign to stop the opening of a detention centre at Hassexfield. It's an attempt to criminalise people who've done nothing other than to try to escape oppression and hatred. It's the way in which anti-refugee and anti-asylum seeker racism has been pushed for so many years, scapegoating people who've done nothing wrong and treating them like criminals. That's why it's important that we support the campaigns to ensure that Hassexfield's never open. People who are seeking asylum and refuge should not be treated as criminals. They should not be put in detention centres. They should be given shelter and sanctuary because that's what they demand and that's what they need. So without further ado, we got Rosa from that one of the Hassexfield campaigns.
Thank you. So, as we've just heard, there is a planned opening of a detention centre, what is known as an immigration removal centre, just in our region here in County Durham. It's on a site that is already a site of trauma and pain, where many young men who were detained when it was a prison are known to have been abused. And on top of that, our government now wants to add more pain and trauma, re-traumatising women who in many cases have been trafficked or have experienced war or have experienced violation of their human rights in their home countries and here in the UK. I think it's also important to set the context for this. Last year, so many of us were out here on the streets, here in Newcastle and all over the planet in support of Black Lives Matter. But a lot of people here in the UK thought that this was an American problem, thought that it was about one policeman murdering one black man in America. And I know that many of us here know that's not the case, but still that rhetoric gets peddled. It's a problem of the US. Now maybe there are less guns on our streets here in the UK, and maybe the violation of human rights against people who are racialised is less visible, less obvious by the police. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. And there are much more covert insidious ways that those kinds of violations are happening against people who are either racialized as black or who may well face racism. And that includes the way that people seeking asylum and refuge here in this country are treated. So these centres, as we know, are not safe places. All we have to do is look at a few Google searches about Yarl's Wood to find the many, many stories of abuse of the people who are detained there, the women who are detained there, in some cases with their children. And this is what the government wants to do in our region, is open another one of these centres. So, as we've said, it's very important that we oppose this. We have a window of opportunity. They plan to open the centre in September. We don't have a lot of time. They are recruiting staff for this centre now. Mighty is the company that will be staffing this centre. Durham University uses Mighty for their security, and yet Durham is supposed to be a city of sanctuary. So there are all kinds of ways that we can put pressure on the people who stand to gain from this detention centre by saying no. If Durham is a city of sanctuary, how can they have an immigration removal centre that abuses people's freedom and people's human rights? If Durham is a city of sanctuary and Durham University is supposedly part of that, why are they using a company who will be staffing a place that is abusing people's human rights? I've also got the words of people who have been detained that I wanted to share with you, to give us here an example and some stories about what being in detention is like and how the people who have experienced that feel. In detention, you'll experience people shouting, crying, hurting themselves. Employees will come in the morning. They might take your cellmate who arrived 3 days ago. They'll come early in the morning when everyone's asleep. They'll take him down to the other cells where they're waiting to deport him. And then the guy will have told you that he's got a daughter or family here, that basically he's not going to see them again, that their family is destroyed. In the cases of people who have no family in the UK, they are very, very isolated. They have no visitors. They are there alone. And then another person will tell you, the Home Office want to send me home or send me back, but I've never lived in the country that they're sending me to. I know no one. I'm going to be homeless. I have no way to make an income. I might not even speak the same language. A few years ago, I was involved in a campaign against the very shady deportations that the government were doing, using luxury jets to deport people back to Nigeria, to Jamaica, a number of countries around the world. And so many stories around that time came out that people were being sent back to countries they had no connection to, that they'd never even been to in their lives. But basically, they just wanted to fill these jets that they paid for. So that's the kind of corruption that we're talking about. But it's human lives, it's people's lives that are being destroyed and affected by these actions. My phone's gone blank and I'm not going to keep trying to read from it because it's not the best way to do things. But the other stories that I have here include people's mental health being severely affected by the trauma of detention. And that actually includes the guards. These people who are talking about their own experience of detention